Hello and welcome to Manic Movies, a series we talk about the madness of movies. I'm Ryanimaniac, and welcome to the final installment of my Road to the Endgame series, where we're finally taking a look at the long-awaited Avengers Endgame. Before we get started, I want to address the fact that there are major spoilers in this review. So, Captain Marvel, I kind of went into minor spoiler territory, but for this one, yeah, there's going to be some big spoilers in this video. So, if you have not seen the movie yet, go watch it first, and then come back to this, because I'm not going to be the guy, like so many other people out there at the moment, that are spoiling the movie for everyone else. This was a big film that's been building up over many, many years. I don't want to be the guy that ends up ruining the whole big ending that's been planned for so many years. So, yeah. Major spoilers, go see the film, then you can come back and watch this. So the story of the film picks up with the Avengers after the events of Infinity War. You know, a few weeks have gone by since Thanos snapped away half of all existence, and it's pretty much them recovering, looking for Thanos, in which they end up fighting him with the help of Captain Marvel, but it's revealed that he destroyed the Infinity Stones, so that what he has done cannot be undone. And so 5 years have passed, and the Avengers are all pretty much trying to still come to terms with the grip that half of humanity and half of all existence has been blinked out of existence. And they all deal with it in different ways. Cap's part of a support group. Nat keeps tabs with Nebula and Rocket and a bunch of the other Avengers in different parts of the galaxy and the world. Bruce has now been able to put his intelligence inside the Hulk's body, so it's him in the big Hulk muscle form, but also he's keeping his regular intelligence. Hawkeye has now become a vigilante due to the fact that all his family was snapped out of existence, and he's pretty much lost all hope in humanity. And one of my personal favorites of the Avengers recovering from the events of the snap is the fact that Thor pretty much is a recluse who only hangs out with Korg and Meek and New Asgard, and he's pretty much just a super out-of-way alcoholic, doesn't care of anything. Just this big old sloth, lazy doofus who now wants nothing to do with Thanos or anything. He's just like, oh, I'm cool, come on, get a beer, that sort of thing. So, I was not expecting that at all. I was expecting a lot more, I must avenge them, and all that. But after, like, the first scene, he's just pretty much just like, don't bother me for the rest of the movie. That's great. And Tony has now decided to give up the whole Iron Man life and has now started a family of his own, has a daughter of his own. And so it's pretty much them trying to come to grips and starting to sort of accept the fact that, yeah, they lost and there's really nothing they can do about it. But all that changes when Scott Lang comes out of the quantum realm. See, at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, I forgot to address this in my review of that, during an experiment to gather energy from the quantum realm, Scott manages to get stuck in the quantum realm when Hank, Janet, and Hope all get snapped out of existence. And so Scott arrives back in this after period of the snap, in which, for him, it's been 5 hours, but in reality, it's been 5 years in the outside of the world. And so he arrives back and pretty much explains the whole fact that it's only been 5 hours for him. And so they begin to understand that with the help of the quantum realm, maybe they can go back in time and find the stones before they were destroyed, so that they can reverse the snap. And so the film is them pretty much trying to regain or to go get the stones in the past, and so that they can undo the snap and pretty much bring everyone back. But overall, yeah, it's a very crazy plot going on. So there was a lot of build-up to this film, and not only did it live up to the hype, I think, but I think it far surpassed anybody's expectations of where it was going. Mostly just due to the whole secretive nature of it. Just about everybody had sort of a rough idea how it was going to end, that the heroes would eventually end up coming back, but what I feel like the big question, what was in everybody's minds, is how they were going to pull this off. And so the whole time travel aspect was very unique. I don't really think anybody saw that coming. Well, a couple people, but not quite to the level of they're going back to get the Infinity Stones. I remember a lot of people theorizing, well, they're going to go back to an earlier point in time so they can prevent Thanos from getting the stones then, or something along those lines. But it really, it was interesting to see that they were actually going to get the stones. So it was pleasant to go into this film pretty much having no expectations and being pleasantly surprised as to where they were going. And honestly, one of the big parts of the film I do like is the fact you do get to see pretty much all the Avengers' reactions to losing. Like I said, how every character takes it a different way. Like Hawkeye becoming a vigilante, and Cap joining a support group, and Iron Man deciding, I'm going to start a family. I'm not part of the superhero thing anymore. I tried it and half of humanity got wiped out of existence, so I'm done with the superhero life. Oh, I'm just going to start my family and live my life. And so it's interesting to see how each Avenger reacted to it, and also how it affects them on a personal level. I will say maybe the one problem I do kind of have with the film is that the time travel aspect of it is kind of complicated. They try to make it a point that it's like not Back to the Future or Terminator rules, where if you change the past, it changes the future. But at the same time, it leads to very many questions, like for instance, the fact of they decided to go back to 2012 to the first New York fight to retrieve the Tesseract after the Battle of New York. And due to a little bit of a mess up on their end, Loki ends up getting the Tesseract and disappears. And it's kind of not really explained as to why they don't address that. It's just sort of something happens and then it's sort of glossed over. Like, I feel like there's these moments like that, which I get maybe they're setting that up for his TV show or whatever, but still, it's just, I don't understand how Loki could get away and then somehow end up still in the dungeon it's in Asgard in the events of Thor: The Dark World. So, I don't know, the time travel aspect is a little weird. Apparently people can die in the past and yet still be alive in the present. I don't know, the time travel aspect is pretty weird, but if you don't think, I think it helps just not to think about it too hard. When you start thinking about that aspect, it starts raising a lot of plot holes, but for the most part, it's honestly not too distracting because of everything else going on that's honestly just paying off all these big things that have been leading up in all these films. But also on the other end of the time traveling thing, it is cool to see, like, a lot of these other moments from the other films, and suddenly, hey, look, some of the Avengers were there, like Rocket and Thor were back in the events of Thor: The Dark World, or Cap and Tony are in the events of the Battle of New York with Ant-Man and Bruce. All these, past events, it was nice to see them go back to. I would have liked to have seen more, the Battle of New York being the biggest one. And then War Machine and Nebula go back to the planet in which Peter Quill gets the Power Stone, and then Natasha and Hawkeye, Black Widow and Hawkeye end up going to Vormir to get the Soul Stone, which, I don't know, it would have been cool just to see these a lot bigger moments. I understand the Soul Stone, obviously, there's only one way to get that. But still, I would have liked to have seen a lot bigger battles, per se. But I feel like it does sort of help the pacing just to have that one big memorable scene. Thanos is, again, pretty good. I like the fact that they kill off original Thanos at the beginning. That was sort of a shock that I don't think anybody was expecting. Due to the fact that he pretty much destroyed the Infinity Stone, so they had no further use for him, and Thor kills him by going for the head, as he should have. But it was also interesting to sort of see a past Thanos, in which he realizes, oh wait, I succeeded, but they're still trying to stop me, so now I have to wipe out all existence and just start it over from scratch. I mean, it's a little uh, more evil than, I'm not quite sure about the, morale behind his, motivations in this one, though. It just seems kind of strange. Like, in the original, it sort of made sense. He was just trying to, you know, bring balance to the universe. In this one, he's just like, I'm just gonna wipe it all out and just start from the beginning. Which, I mean, is also sort of a middle ground mission, but at the same time, I don't know, I feel like he sort of loses that noble goal that he had, like in the Infinity War. So I don't know. He's still good. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I think like he's just slightly weaker in terms of motivation as he was in Infinity War. But it is still awesome to finally see the big battle with him and the Avengers. I will say though, another big gripe I do have with the film is probably Captain Marvel, because honestly she just does so very little in this film, like even less than in the last film, I feel, which is saying something given the fact the last film was her own. But I don't know, it seems like she just doesn't fit in this film to me. Like, honestly, they could have saved her for... If they had introduced her earlier, maybe I'd understand it, but it feels just so forced that she gets her own movie and then suddenly here she is. Like, she's in the beginning of the film when they first go to fight Thanos, and then she shows up at the end of this film as sort of an ex machina. Like, everything's sort of going bad, and then all of a sudden she shows up and blows up Thanos' ship and, you know, joins the fight. And I don't know, it just feels... She just doesn't really do a whole lot in the film. I understand that there are people, though, that still find when she does... Like, don't get me wrong, when she is there fighting, it's really cool and all, but I don't know, I feel like she should have just been doing more in the film, as aside from just in the beginning and just at the end. I don't know. It feels like she just doesn't belong in the film. And I understand they write it that she's busy helping the rest of the galaxy, who are also dealing with the snap. But at the same time, I recall them building it up for all leading up to the events of Endgame that, you know, she can travel through time, she's super powerful, and I felt like she's just so underused in the film. And I don't know. Maybe when she has more films of her own, we can flesh her out a bit more. But as this film stands, she just doesn't really do anything, and she just feels out of place in this big whole grand epic of celebrating the past 11 years, and all of a sudden there's just this hero that just showed up. So I don't know. It feels like maybe had she had a movie a couple years ago, she would have been a lot stronger, but she just feels so fresh and new that, I don't know, she feels out of place of celebrating all of these characters. Stan Lee's cameo in the film is that when Cap and Tony have to return to the 70s to try to get the Tesseract again, and to retain more Pym particles so they can go back to the quantum realm, yada yada. He is this sort of hippie dude in a car that screams, "Make love, not war," as he's passing a military base. So, I'm not the biggest fan of this cameo, mostly because it's, honestly, if you weren't really paying attention, you wouldn't even really be able to tell it's him, because he's sort of young, aged down, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, I felt like I knew they didn't know he was going to pass before this, but at the same time, I felt like Avengers Endgame, the big ending to this big story, I feel like they could have given him a lot better cameo than that. Something that sort of... I would have liked his cameo to have sort of actively played into the big final battle in some way. I mean, I know they weren't going to be able to do anything too crazy, but I don't know, just... Or maybe have like a final monologue at the end or something. I don't know. Just that one scene of him doing that, I feel like just wasn't a proper send-off for this, especially if it is his final cameo. But again, it's a good cameo. I just felt like they could have done something so much stronger with it than just one little goofy line. Now, I want to re-emphasize once again, big spoilers up ahead, because now we're talking about the ending, in which the final big battle happens. And, you know, the Avengers manage to succeed in their mission. They get all the Infinity Stones. And Hulk puts on the Infinity Stone, because he's pretty much the only one strong enough to take it, and snaps all of the life back into existence. And the Avengers go, yeah, we did it! We finally succeeded! Then Thanos shows up from 2014. Because that version of Nebula was able to sneak back into the present day, and pretty much bring back Thanos with her. And so, yeah, even though they managed to bring back existence, they're not done yet, because Thanos is here. And it's pretty much, okay, give me that gauntlet so I can pretty much end all existence. So I can start it from scratch, so there won't be anybody else left to try to stop me and come and bring it back from this. And so we finally get the big battle of the original Avengers, you know, fighting Thanos and all that. And ultimately, they sort of one by one get overpowered. We get a lot of cool moments though, like Tony's new big armor, and Thor pretty much regaining his confidence and taking on Thanos, and also the fact that Cap gets Thor's hammer. I knew they were setting something up with that with Age of Ultron. I flipping knew it, and it's so glad to see that finally paid off. That he finally was deemed worthy enough to wield the hammer. It is sort of done more of a joke a little bit, but still, when you see Cap holding the hammer, it's just so cool. And also the fact he can summon Stormbreaker. But yeah, overall, even though they do manage to put up a good fight, Thanos is still so big and powerful. So when it ends up with Cap being the last one standing, his shield broken, his vibranium shield broken, and all seems lost, and Cap's pretty much looks like he's gonna say his usual phrase of "I can do this all day." Suddenly, he hears Sam on his intercom saying, "On your left, you see a Doctor Strange portal open up, and out come Black Panther and the Wakandans, letting out the war chant." And from that moment on, through a certain point in the ending, I had the biggest smile on my face as everybody comes back. All the heroes we lost, all of them get a big moment here, and just that one moment of Cap finally saying the two words I've been waiting for him to say for so long, Avengers Assemble. From that point on, I had the biggest smile on my face. And it's just so great and epic. It's the moment I wanted in Infinity War with all the heroes together. It is still a shame that, you know, X-Men and the Fantastic Four and a lot of other heroes that Marvel hadn't quite introduced yet don't really get to be in the battle, but at the same time, it's so great to just see all the heroes. Like, Infinity War was great, you did get to see all the heroes, but this one is different in the fact that they're all together in one place, taking on the big threat and his army. And so to just see them all fighting, it's so amazing. I cannot put it into words. It's just so amazing and epic, and it goes from character to character to character. And it's so amazing. And now we're going to talk about the part where I stop smiling. And that is when the battle gets won, in which Thanos manages to get Tony's version of the gauntlet. And when Thanos is about to snap his glove, he says, "I am inevitable." But then he realizes he doesn't have the stones and Tony has them, and Tony replies, "I'm Iron Man," and snaps. And then all of Thanos' army and Thanos are all wiped out and dusted. And so it's finally over. The battle is won. But at the cost of Tony. Because the energy from the snap was too much for him. And ultimately, he dies. And boy, does that hurt. Like, you know, there was the ending of Infinity War in which everyone snapped away, and it was awful seeing all of your heroes, being dusted away, but, you just had a feeling they were going to win. But this one, this is the end of this big story. And so, now to see a character, the first character that was introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, die, that hurts so much more than anything in Infinity War. Like, legitimately, that hurt really bad. Because now there's so much more. He not only more is he losing, but also you get to look and just see how everyone reacts to that. Like, I remember one of the scenes at the end in which they're holding a funeral for him, and you get to see almost everyone there, with the exception of Black Widow. Cap, Hulk, Thor, Hawkeye's family, Spider-Man and Aunt May, just the Guardians. Everyone's there, and you just get to see all these characters that for so many years you've been with them, and just getting to see their struggles and all, and ultimately knowing that the one who pretty much started that all off has just died. And yeah, it's not pleasant. I'm not gonna lie, I cried. And I never cry at movies, but that hurt really bad just watching that. So yeah, I mean, Infinity War was hard walking out of, but at the same time, this film took me several days to process the events that went down. And, just everything that it's leaving behind, and this whole big franchise, what it left behind, and how it impacted my life in such a big way. That's why, honestly, it's taken me so long to actually get around to recording this video, is because honestly, I've just been spending the past couple of days just processing it, running through my head as to what exactly happened. The fact that Iron Man, the big hero that everyone knows now due to the MCU, like, it's so weird looking back and just saying that before that first Iron Man movie, almost no one in the general public really knew who Iron Man was. And now this film comes out, and he has such a big impact on everyone. Helped change comic book movies in such a big way. And that's not only due to Robert Downey Jr., it's also due to, the various directors and writers and producers and casting directors and all sorts of stuff behind the scenes. And so, I don't know, it was just seeing that funeral and seeing all the characters being so torn up that Tony lost, and he gave his life to save the universe. It's such a big blow. Really, it is. Like, this was a character who started off only caring about himself in the first film, and by now, suddenly seeing him give his life for the entire universe because that was the one possibility in which they win. Like Doctor Strange said, out of 14,605,000 possibilities, this is the one they win. And it just... I'm not gonna lie, it still stings. It's honestly still hard talking about it right now. Like, I'm still trying to come to grips with that, the fact that Iron Man died. And I don't even know how to feel about that. Because it's just... I've been running it through my head for the past couple days. It's something that's so hard to come to grips with. And honestly, I think it's going to still take even a longer while to come to grips with that. The fact that Iron Man died, and, we're not getting him back like we did with all the other heroes. That he's gone for good. And it also is sad to see Captain America ultimately, pass off the shield. Like, they go to return the stones, but Cap decides he's going to stay in the past so he can marry Peggy and live out his life. And so, years later, at that point in which he went back to the past, he returns as an old man and pretty much gives Sam his shield. Just that also, it's just realizing all these characters that you've been with for so many years have now grown and changed in such big ways. And, Thor deciding to go with the Guardians, and Hawkeye reuniting with his family. No, Black Widow is dead, and Hulk, I don't really recall exactly what the Hulk is doing, but still, just to see the Hulk has changed so much. I don't know. It's honestly made me appreciate going back and watching all the films from the first Iron Man back up to this. And sure, there were some movies that weren't particularly good, but it was so interesting still to see how these characters evolved after all these films, and how, after all that, how much of an impact they left in this final film. And yeah, it's been such a wild ride, and it's changed my life in such a big way. And yeah, they're still going to be making Marvel movies after this. They've already said. Far From Home comes out in a couple months, but after this, it's never going to be quite the same. And so, it's honestly just hard looking at that, seeing that this was a big part of my childhood. I remember being at 12 years old, my dad saying, "Here, watch Iron Man with me," and I just fell in love with it. And just remember him looking up the release date for Iron Man 2 being in 2010, and I was like, "Oh, that's so far away." And now looking back, and here I am at the end of that big story. So many years, it's mind-blowing to see how much of an impact it made on my life. So, to Kevin Feige and everybody on the Marvel Studios team, thank you for this big, grand story. I wish you success in the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even though I'm probably not going to be sticking with it as much as I did with this, because, let's be honest, now it's getting to be such a chore to keep up with everything. But I want to thank you all so much for, bringing all this big story to me and so many other Marvel fans, when this is a medium that nobody thought was going to work. We had films associated with the comic book genre, stuff like Batman and Robin and Daredevil. Nobody thought this film genre was going to work. And then Iron Man came along and pretty much blew it all out of the water. So, yeah, thank you for that. And ultimately, thank you, Stan Lee, for making all these incredible characters that have changed not only my life, but the lives of so many others. So, yeah. So, all in all, after that super long rant, I can't recommend this film more. It's the perfect way to end off the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or at least the Thanos story. I mean, again, the films are going to continue, but boy, nothing's going to beat this first 10-year run, or 11 years, I should say, of the whole Infinity Saga. So, yeah, I highly recommend the film. If you've made it to this point, you've probably already spoiled yourself, or you've already seen the film and probably agree with me. So, anyways, thank you all so much for watching this video. If you liked it, you can feel free to hit that like button down below to show support for the channel. You can subscribe to pretty much see more zaniness like this, my movie reviews and gaming videos and random other stuff I like to put up. Or you can leave a comment down below giving a suggestion of something else I should take a look at. Now that I'm done with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I need something else to look at. I have a couple ideas in mind, but not really sure where we're going to go with it quite yet. I don't know. But if you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them down below, whether it be a movie, a game, or TV show, or pretty much any other medium, because you guys might have a suggestion for me of something I might want to take a look at, and I might have something to say about it. I don't know. Leave it down below, and we'll see where it goes. But anyways, with all that being said, stay sane in the insane world, and I'll see all you little loonies later. Excelsior!